A single guard refused to open the gate. That decision killed a queen. His name was François Dufresne. He had already taken the bribe, 50 louis d'or, to look the other way while Marie Antoinette escaped into the night. The route was planned. The carriage was waiting. Freedom was 20 steps away, but he refused. And 3 weeks later, the blade fell at 27 minutes past 12 on October 16, 1793. What you're about to discover is not just how she died. It's why that guard changed his mind, who paid him the second bribe, and how 3 separate conspiracies determined her fate before the trial even began. This is the conspiracy they buried with her. September 2nd, 1793, 10 in the evening. Marie Antoinette stood in the courtyard of the conciergerie prison. She could see the final gate. Beyond it, a carriage, a safe house. Germany, freedom. Alexandre Gance de Rougeville, the knight who had orchestrated her escape, waited in the shadows. Meconis, the prison official who had been secretly turned, stood ready with false orders from the municipality. Every detail had been planned. The guards had been bribed. False entries would be made in the prison records to protect those who helped her. The queen crossed the courtyard. The final gate stood before her. François Dufresne stood in her way. No amount of persuasion could change his mind. Despite having already accepted his bribe, he refused to let her pass. Whether driven by sudden loyalty, fear, or simple stubbornness, his refusal condemned the queen to death. This was the Carnation Plot, named for the flowers that concealed secret messages, and its failure was just one thread in a web of conspiracies that determined her fate. To understand why that guard's decision mattered, you need to know what was happening in the shadows of Paris. 3 separate conspiracies were converging on one woman. One sought to save her. Another sought to use her death for political advantage. The third sought to destroy her memory so completely that her execution would seem not just necessary but righteous. Behind the public theater of revolutionary tribunals and passionate speeches about liberty, a calculated political machine was grinding toward one inevitable conclusion. The Committee of Public Safety had already written her death sentence. The trial was merely performance. The first conspiracy began in the corridors of power, where men who had once bowed to royalty now decided which heads would roll. Jacques Hébert, the radical journalist whose newspaper had poisoned public opinion against the monarchy, understood that Marie Antoinette's death served a purpose beyond punishment. She was a political sacrifice, offered to bind the people of Paris to the revolutionary government through shared blood. Hébert had made his promise publicly. He would deliver the head of Antoinette to the people, he declared, even if he had to cut it off himself. But this was not the fury of a mob. It was the cold arithmetic of survival. The Jacobins who controlled the Committee of Public Safety knew their grip on power was slipping. Military disasters had shaken revolutionary confidence. Austrian forces had reclaimed Belgium after their victory at Neerwinden in March of 1793. In the western regions of France, royalist rebels in the Vendée had declared their allegiance to Marie Antoinette's son, proclaiming him Louis XVII, the rightful king of France. Each defeat made the imprisoned queen more dangerous, not as a person, but as a symbol around which opposition could rally. The committee calculated that her continued existence threatened their revolution more than her death would outrage their enemies. She had become a liability that could no longer be managed. Her execution would send an unmistakable message. No remnant of the old order would survive, no matter how powerless they appeared. But Marie Antoinette was far from powerless in the eyes of those who plotted her rescue. The second conspiracy took shape in the shadows of Paris, orchestrated by royalist agents who moved through the city like ghosts from a vanished world. At the center of this web stood Jean-Pierre de Batz, Baron de Sainte-Croix, a man whose loyalty to the crown had survived the revolution's attempts to erase such devotion. De Batz had already failed once. On January 21st, 1793, he had tried desperately to rally the crowd as King Louis XVI was led to his execution. The attempt collapsed in bloodshed, with several royalists killed and de Batz barely escaping with his life. But failure only sharpened his determination to save the queen. The Carnation Plot was the most audacious of his schemes. On the night of September 2nd and 3rd, 1793, every detail had been prepared. Rougeville pinned 2 carnations to his lapel before visiting Marie Antoinette in her prison cell. One carnation carried a hidden note that outlined the escape plan. Michonis would arrive at 10 in the evening with false orders. He would escort the queen from her cell through the prison courtyard and into waiting arms of freedom. From there, she would be spirited to a safe house in Livry-Gargan before being transported across the border into Germany. On the appointed night, the plan unfolded exactly as designed, until it didn't, and François Dufresne's decision sealed her fate. The failure of the Carnation Plot accelerated the machinery of execution that was already grinding toward its predetermined conclusion. When news of the failed escape reached Fouquier-Tinville, the public prosecutor who served as the revolution's chief executioner, he understood immediately what it meant. The Queen's supporters were still active, still dangerous, still capable of disrupting the careful choreography of revolutionary justice. Her trial, originally planned for later in the year, was suddenly expedited, but the Carnation Plot was merely the most visible thread in a web of international conspiracy that stretched far beyond the borders of France. The most remarkable of these involved an American sea captain named Stephen Clough and his merchant vessel, the Sally. Clough was an unlikely conspirator. A veteran of the American Revolutionary War, he possessed Republican convictions that should have made him a natural enemy of monarchy. His hatred of kings and kingdoms was well known among his peers. Yet somehow, through channels that remain murky even today, he became entangled in a plot to smuggle Marie Antoinette across the Atlantic to the safety of American soil. The plan was breathtaking in its scope. According to the scheme devised by Baron de Batz and his American contacts, the Queen would be secreted aboard the Sally and transported to the coast of Maine, where a network of sympathetic merchants and former French nobles would provide sanctuary. A house had been prepared, contacts established, and routes planned through the wilderness of the American frontier. In a letter that may have cost him his freedom, Clough wrote to his associates in Maine with instructions that revealed both the scale of the conspiracy and its ultimate failure. He urged them not to prepare for the arrival of a queen, but rather for a broken-hearted woman whose royal dignity had been stripped away by revolution and imprisonment. The letter was intercepted by revolutionary authorities and delivered to the tribunal as evidence of the vast network plotting against the Republic. The discovery of these international connections transformed Marie Antoinette from a prisoner into the centerpiece of what revolutionaries called a vast counter-revolutionary conspiracy. In late October of 1793, just weeks before her execution, French authorities uncovered evidence of financial fraud connected to the liquidation of the French East India Company. Baron de Batz was named as the leader of a web of corruption that allegedly reached into the highest levels of the revolutionary government itself. According to testimony extracted from François Chabot, a former priest-turned-revolutionary who had been arrested on charges of financial crimes, de Batz had maintained secret contacts with members of the Paris Commune and even the National Convention. The allegations suggested that the conspiracy to save the Queen was merely one element in a broader campaign to undermine the revolutionary government from within. These revelations provided the final justification needed by those who had already decided her fate. Marie Antoinette was no longer simply a deposed queen awaiting judgment. She had become the symbol of an international conspiracy that threatened the very existence of the Revolutionary Republic. Yet even as the machinery of execution ground toward its inevitable conclusion, a third conspiracy was unfolding in the streets and taverns of Paris. This one sought not to save the Queen or to use her death for political advantage, but to destroy her memory so completely that her execution would seem righteous. The campaign of character assassination that preceded Marie Antoinette's death was systematic, coordinated, and devastatingly effective. Revolutionary propagandists understood that killing a queen was not enough. They had to kill the idea of queenship itself. Through a flood of pamphlets, songs, and images, they transformed Marie Antoinette from a woman into a monster whose crimes against nature and nation demanded the ultimate punishment. The execution ballads that flooded the streets of Paris in the weeks before her death were particularly vicious. These cheaply printed songs, set to familiar melodies that could be sung by anyone, recounted her alleged crimes in verses designed to be memorable and repeatable. The ballad sellers who hawked their wares on busy street corners and bridges ensured that every citizen of Paris could participate in the communal destruction of her reputation. In taverns and cafes, in theaters and private homes, voices joined together to sing of her supposed crimes, her alleged conspiracies, her imagined bloodlust. She became, in the revolutionary imagination, a woman who dreamed of swimming in French blood, a creature whose very existence was an affront to human decency. 3 conspiracies converged on a single moment: the fall of a blade at 27 minutes past 12. One conspiracy succeeded completely. The Jacobins achieved their calculated execution, binding the people to the revolutionary government through shared blood. Marie Antoinette died not because she was guilty, but because her death served their survival. The second conspiracy failed by the width of a prison gate. A single guard's refusal condemned the queen and revealed how thin the line between salvation and destruction truly was. François Dufresne's decision sealed not just her fate, but the fate of an entire world that was dying with her. The third conspiracy succeeded beyond its architect's wildest dreams. The character assassination was so complete that centuries later we still struggle to separate the woman from the monster created in revolutionary pamphlets and execution ballads. They destroyed not just her life, but her memory, turning a queen into a symbol of everything the New World rejected. In the end, Marie Antoinette's execution was not the result of revolutionary justice. It was the product of revolutionary calculation. Her death was decided not in a courtroom, but in smoke-filled chambers where men weighed political advantage against human life. The trial was theater. The conspiracies were the real drama. Which conspiracy shaped history more? The one that killed her? The one that failed to save her? Or the one that destroyed her memory? The answer reveals how power writes its own version of justice, one severed head at a time.